The little girl's bare feet left blood in the snow. Each step, a red stain on white. 10-year-old Clara Finch didn't look back at the wagon disappearing into the blizzard. She already knew. The woman who promised to care for her was gone. The frozen bread in her pocket was all she had left. She was abandoned, thrown away, left to die. But she wasn't the only one. 6 more children would follow. And the wealthiest cowboy in Montana was about to change everything. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment with your city. Stay with me until the very end. Get out. Clara stared at Agnes Barlow. The wind howled. Snow bit into her skin. "Ma'am? You deaf girl? I said get out." Clara climbed down from the wagon. Her bare feet hit the frozen ground. The cold shot up through her bones like a knife. "But there ain't nothing here, Mrs. Barlow. There ain't no town. There ain't no—" "I know what there ain't." Agnes Barlow's voice was flat, dead, like something inside her had frozen long before winter came. "What there ain't is food enough for 5 mouths when the wells run dry and the crops are dead in the ground." Clara's hands trembled. Not from the cold, from something worse. "I'll work harder. I'll eat less. I won't be no trouble, I swear it. Please, Mrs. Barlow, please don't—" "Enough!" The word cracked through the air like a whip. Agnes reached into the wagon and pulled out a small bundle. A handkerchief, stained and worn, wrapped around something that crinkled like paper. She threw it at Clara's feet. "Bread, cheese, should last you a day or 2 if you're careful." Clara stared at the bundle in the snow. A day or 2. Like that made it right. Like a handful of crumbs could balance out leaving a child to die in a blizzard. "You can't do this," Clara's voice cracked. "You can't just leave me here. I ain't done nothing wrong. I did everything you asked. Everything." And it still wasn't enough. Agnes picked up the reins. "That's the thing about dead weight, girl. Don't matter how hard it tries. It's still just weight." Dead weight. The words hit Clara like a fist to the chest. "Mrs. Barlow." "Wagon's leaving. You can stand there crying, or you can start walking. Your choice." The horses moved. The wagon creaked. And Clara stood there in the snow, watching the only home she'd known for 8 months disappear into the white. She didn't run after it. She didn't scream or beg or throw herself at the wheels. She'd learned long ago that begging only made the leaving worse. That people who abandoned you didn't look back. And if you forced them to, they'd only hate you for it. So she stood there, silent, alone. And when the wagon was gone, swallowed by the storm, Clara bent down and picked up the bundle at her feet. Her fingers were already numb. "All right then," she whispered to no one. "All right." She started walking. The snow came harder now. Clara couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Every step was a battle. Her bare feet had gone from burning to numb to something worse. A nothing feeling that meant the cold was winning. She thought about her papa, Thomas Finch, copper miner, dead 3 years now, buried under 1,000 tons of rock when the tunnel collapsed. "You're going to be something special, Clara girl," he used to say. "I can see it in you. Something bright, something strong. Don't you ever let nobody tell you different." She'd believed him then. She wasn't sure she believed anything now. The wind screamed. Clara stumbled. Her knee hit something hard under the snow. A rock, maybe, or a root, and she went down. For a moment, she just lay there. The snow was soft, almost warm in a strange way. Her body had stopped shivering, and that was probably bad, but she couldn't remember why. "Get up!" The voice in her head sounded like her papa. "Get up, Clara girl. This ain't how your story ends." "I'm tired, Papa." "I know, baby. I know you are. But you gotta get up anyway. That's what finches do. We get up. Clara pressed her palms into the snow. Pushed. Her arms shook. Her body screamed. She got up. One step. Then another. Then another. The wind shifted. Clara heard something, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Hoofbeats. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Strangers meant danger. That was the first rule of being alone. People who came looking for lost children rarely had good intentions. But there was nowhere to hide. Nothing but snow and trees and the howling white void. So Clara stood there, swaying on her frozen feet, and waited. The horse came out of the blizzard like a ghost. Big chestnut mare, white blaze on her forehead, moving through the snow like it was nothing. And on her back, a man. Tall, broad shoulders, gray hair under a worn hat, face like weathered leather, lined and hard, but his eyes were something else. He saw her. She watched it happen, watched his expression shift from surprise to something that looked almost like pain. The horse stopped. Lord Almighty! His voice was rough, low. What in God's name? He was off the horse before Clara could move. Boots hitting the snow, moving toward her slow, careful, like she was a wild thing that might bolt. Easy now, easy. I ain't gonna hurt you. Clara didn't move, couldn't move. Her body had stopped obeying her commands somewhere in the last hour. You alone out here? She tried to nod. The world tilted. Whoa! Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. Warm hands. So warm they burned against her frozen skin. I got you. I got you, child. You're all right now. Clara looked up at him. This stranger with the sad eyes and the gentle hands. Why? Her voice came out as a croak. Why'd you stop? Something flickered across his face. Old pain. Old grief. Because somebody should have, he said quietly. A long time ago, somebody should have stopped for me. He lifted her onto the horse like she weighed nothing, swung up behind her, one arm wrapped around her waist, solid and steady. Name's Ezra Thornton. Got a ranch about 2 miles north. You hold on now, you hear? Don't you let go. Clara's frozen fingers found the saddle horn. I ain't got nowhere else to go, she whispered. You do now. The horse surged forward. The storm swallowed them whole. Clara should have been afraid. She wasn't. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something that wasn't fear or hunger or the cold certainty of being alone. She felt hope. And that scared her more than the blizzard ever could. The ranch house came out of the white, like an answer to a prayer Clara had stopped believing in. 2 stories, stone and timber, windows glowing warm against the storm. Bigger than anything she'd ever seen. Bigger than the orphanage in Helena. Bigger than Agnes Barlow's farmhouse and barn put together. Bessie! Ezra's voice cut through the wind. Bessie, open up. The door flew open. A woman stood there, gray-streaked hair, weathered face, eyes that went wide when she saw Clara. Ezra Thornton, what in the... Found her in the storm, half frozen. Get the fire up, get blankets, move. Bessie didn't argue. She turned and disappeared into the house, already shouting. Silas, get in here, we got trouble. Ezra carried Clara inside. The warmth hit her like a wall. She gasped, her body suddenly remembering what it felt like to not be dying. Set her by the fire. A black man appeared, younger than Ezra, strong-built, with calloused hands and sharp eyes. I'll get the blankets. Silas, I know, boss, I know. They moved around her like a storm of their own. Blankets appeared. Someone pressed a cup of something hot into her hands. Clara couldn't hold it. Her fingers wouldn't work. So Bessie held it for her, tipping it against her lips. "Small sips, child. Small sips. That's it." The liquid was warm and sweet. Tea, maybe, or something stronger. Clara couldn't tell. All she knew was that it burned going down, and that burning meant she was still alive. "What's your name, child?" Clara looked up at Bessie. The woman's face was hard, but her eyes were soft, worried. Clara Finch." Clara Finch. Bessie nodded like the name meant something. "Well, Clara Finch, you're safe now. You hear me?" Safe. The word bounced around in Clara's head, looking for somewhere to land. "I ain't never been safe," she heard herself say. "Ain't sure I know what that means." Bessie's expression shifted. Something that might have been pain, might have been recognition. "You'll learn," she said quietly. "Lord help us, you'll learn." The warmth seeped into Clara's bones. The shivering started. Violent, whole-body tremors that made her teeth rattle. "That's good," Silas said. "Means she's warming up. Means she's gonna make it." "Course she's gonna make it." Ezra's voice was gruff. "Didn't ride through a blizzard to bring home a corpse." Clara looked at him. This man who had stopped. This stranger who had pulled her out of the snow. "Why?" Ezra paused. "Why what?" "Why'd you help me? You don't know me. You don't owe me nothing." The room went quiet. Bessie and Silas exchanged a look that Clara couldn't read. Ezra walked over and crouched down in front of her. Up close, she could see the lines on his face, the grief carved into every one of them. "I had a daughter once," he said. His voice was low, rough. "Not by blood, but mine all the same. She came to this ranch the way you did, half dead, half starved, running from people who should have protected her." Clara's breath caught. "My wife, Catherine, she saw something in her, took her in, raised her like our own." He paused. "Fever took them both. Catherine first, then Emma 5 years later. 16 years old. Brightest thing this ranch ever saw." He looked at Clara, and his eyes were wet. "I couldn't save them. Couldn't save either one, but maybe—" He shook his head. "Maybe I can save you. Maybe that's what all that loss was for. So I'd know, when I saw you standing there in the snow, that I had to stop." Clara stared at him. Nobody had ever talked to her like this, like she mattered, like her life was worth something. "I ain't nobody special, Mr. Thornton." "You're wrong." His voice was fierce. "You're a child. That makes you the most special thing there is." Clara felt something crack in her chest, something she'd been holding together for 3 years, since her papa died and the world turned cold. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How to trust people. Every time I do, they leave," Ezra nodded. "I know. I know that's what you've learned. But I ain't leaving. This is my home, has been for 30 years. And if you want it," he paused, "it can be yours too." The tears came. Clara hadn't cried in 3 years, hadn't let herself. Crying was weakness, and weakness got you hurt. But now the tears poured down her face, hot and fast, and she couldn't stop them. Didn't want to stop them. Bessie was there, arms around her, holding her tight. "Let it out, child. Let it all out. You've been carrying this alone for too long." Clara cried. She cried for her papa, dead in the dark. For her mama, who she'd never known. For the orphanage and the years of waiting. For Agnes Barlow and the wagon and the frozen bread in her pocket. She cried for every person who had looked at her and seen nothing worth keeping. And through it all, they held her, Bessie and Ezra and Silas, strangers who had no reason to care, strangers who cared anyway. When the tears finally stopped, Clara's throat was raw and her eyes burned. But something felt different, lighter, like a weight she'd been carrying had finally been set down. "Better?" Bessie asked. Clara nodded. She didn't trust her voice. "Good." Bessie stood up, all business again. "Now, you need food. You need a bath. You need sleep. In that order." "Yes, ma'am." "None of that ma'am nonsense. You call me Bessie. Everyone does." Clara almost smiled. Almost. "Yes, Bessie." The kitchen was warm, lit by oil lamps and the glow of the cook stove. Clara sat at a big wooden table. Too big for just 3 people, she noticed. 6 empty chairs, pushed in neat, waiting for someone to sit. "This is a big table," she said quietly, "for just 3 people." Bessie set a plate in front of her. Roasted chicken, potatoes, fresh bread. "Used to be more of us." Her voice was careful. "Might be more again, someday. Lord works in mysterious ways." Clara looked at Ezra. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "You ain't the first child I've pulled out of a storm, Clara. Probably won't be the last." He paused. "This valley. Folks don't always treat their young ones right. Times get hard, and children get thrown away, like they're nothing, like they don't matter." His jaw tightened. "I got room here, more than I need, more than I could ever use alone." He looked around the kitchen, at the empty chairs, the quiet house, the space that should have been filled with noise and laughter. "Seems to me that room ought to mean something, ought to be used for something good." Clara stared at him. "You take in strays." "I take in children who need a home." His eyes met hers. "There's a difference." She looked down at her plate, the food blurred. "I don't know if I can stay," she whispered. "I don't know if I know how." "That's all right," Ezra's voice was gentle. "You got time to figure it out. Ain't nobody rushing you." Clara picked up the bread. It was warm, soft, fresh from the oven. She bit into it, and the taste was so good, butter and salt and simple, honest bread, that her eyes filled with tears again. "Eat," Bessie said gruffly. "Cry if you need to, but eat." Clara ate. She ate until her stomach ached, until she couldn't force down another bite. And through it all, nobody rushed her, nobody watched her with suspicious eyes, nobody counted the cost of feeding her. When she was finished, Silas cleared the dishes while Bessie led Clara upstairs. "This is your room," Bessie said, opening a door. Clara stopped in the doorway. Her heart stuttered. A real bed. Metal frame, thick mattress, clean sheets. A window overlooking the valley. A dresser with a mirror. A wardrobe. A braided rug on the floor. "This is mine?" "Yours," Bessie's voice softened. "For as long as you need it." Clara walked into the room, touched the bed, the dresser, the wardrobe. Real, solid, hers. "Bessie?" "Yes, child?" "Those empty chairs at the table, those empty rooms in this house." Clara turned to look at her. "What happened to the people who used to fill them?" Bessie was quiet for a long moment. Something old and sad moved across her face. "Life happened," she said finally. "Death. Loss. The way the world takes and don't give nothing back." She paused. "But Ezra, he don't believe that's how it has to be. He thinks the world can give, too, if you let it, if you open your door wide enough." She walked to the doorway. Sleep now. Tomorrow's a new day. We'll figure out the rest then." She left. The door closed softly. Clara stood alone in the room that was hers. Outside, the storm still raged, but in here she was warm, safe, fed. She thought about Agnes Barlow, about the wagon and the cold, and the words that had cut deeper than any wind. Dead weight. She thought about Ezra Thornton, about the sadness in his eyes and the empty chairs at his table. She thought about the 6 rooms in this big house and the children who might one day fill them. Clara walked to the window. The snow was still falling, but she could see lights in the distance. The barn, maybe, or the bunkhouse where the ranch hands slept. This place was real. This chance was real. And maybe, just maybe, she could be real too. She climbed into the bed. The mattress was soft. The blankets were warm. She sank into them like they were arms holding her. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered into the dark. "Thank you for teaching me to get up." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, Clara Finch slept without dreaming of being left behind. She didn't know it yet, but her story was just beginning. 6 more children were out there in the cold. 6 more lives waiting to be saved. And this ranch, this warm, wounded, waiting place, would become home to them all. Morning came slow and gray. Clara woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of voices downstairs. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too soft. The room was too warm. Something was wrong. Then she remembered. The wagon, the snow, the man with sad eyes who had stopped. Clara sat up. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Her feet throbbed. But she was alive. She was here. She got out of bed and found clothes laid out on the chair. A wool dress in deep green. Stockings. Boots. Real boots, leather and solid, with laces that tied up tight. Clara put them on slowly. Her hands trembled. Not from cold. From something else. She went downstairs. The kitchen was warm, filled with the smell of food and the crackle of the cook stove. Ezra sat at the big table, a cup of coffee in his hands. Silas was there too, shoveling eggs into his mouth like he hadn't eaten in days. And Bessie stood at the stove, her back to the door, flipping bacon in a cast-iron pan. "She's up," Silas nodded at Clara. "Thought you might sleep till spring, little miss." Clara didn't know what to say. She stood in the doorway, frozen. "Sit down." Bessie didn't turn around. "Food's almost ready. You need to eat." Clara sat. The chair was solid beneath her. Real. "How you feeling?" Ezra asked. "Sore," Clara's voice came out rough. "But okay." "Sore's normal. You walked through a blizzard with no shoes. Surprised you still got all your toes." Clara looked down at her new boots. "I might not. Haven't checked yet." Silas laughed. A real laugh, warm and sudden. "She's got spirit, boss. I like that." "Spirit's what kept her alive." Ezra set down his coffee cup. "Spirit and stubbornness. Same thing that kept Emma going when she first came here." The name hung in the air. Emma, the daughter who died. "You gonna keep comparing me to her?" Clara asked. The words came out sharper than she meant. Ezra didn't flinch. "No, you ain't Emma. You're Clara. And Clara's got her own story to write." Bessie set a plate in front of her. Eggs, bacon, toast. More food than Clara had seen in weeks. "Eat," Bessie ordered. "Then we talk." Clara ate. She tried to go slow, tried to remember her manners. But hunger won. She shoveled food into her mouth until her stomach hurt, until the plate was empty, until Bessie silently refilled it and she ate that too. When she was finished, she looked up and found all three of them watching her. "Sorry," she muttered. "I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize for being hungry." Bessie's voice was gruff. "Apologize when you do something wrong. Being hungry ain't wrong." Clara nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. Ezra leaned back in his chair. "I meant what I said last night, Clara. You got a home here if you want it. No conditions, no strings. Just a place to be." "Why?" "You asked me that already." "I'm asking again." Clara met his eyes. "Nobody does something for nothing. Not in my experience." "Then your experience has been with the wrong people." "Maybe, but that don't mean you're different." Silas let out a low whistle. "She's testing you, boss." "I know she is." Ezra didn't look away from Clara. "And she's right to. Trust ain't something you give away. It's something you earn." He paused. "So I'll earn it, day by day, action by action. And you can take as long as you need to decide if I'm worth trusting." Clara stared at him. Her chest felt tight. "And if I decide you ain't?" "Then you walk away. No hard feelings. I'll give you supplies, a horse if you need one, enough money to get you to the next town." He shrugged. "Your life, your choice. Always." Nobody had ever said that to her before. Your life, your choice. "I don't know what to do with that," Clara admitted. "That's all right. You got time to figure it out." Bessie started clearing plates. "Enough talk. Girl needs to rest. Heal up. Plenty of time for decisions later." "Actually," Ezra held up a hand, "there's something she should see first." Bessie stopped. Something passed between her and Ezra. A look Clara couldn't read. "You sure about this?" Bessie asked quietly. "I'm sure." Ezra stood up from the table. "Come with me, Clara. There's something in this house you ought to know about." Clara followed him out of the kitchen, through a hallway she hadn't seen last night. The house was bigger than she'd realized. More rooms, more doors, more empty spaces waiting to be filled. Ezra stopped in front of a door at the end of the hall. His hand rested on the knob, but he didn't turn it. "What I'm about to show you," he said slowly, "it ain't easy to look at. But I think you need to see it. Need to understand what this place is. What it could be." Clara's heart beat faster. "What is it?" Ezra opened the door. The room beyond was small, simple. A bed in the corner, a dresser with a mirror, a window that looked out over the snowy valley. And on the walls, drawings, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Children's drawings, some in charcoal, some in pencil, some in faded color. Pictures of horses and mountains and flowers and suns. Pictures of a house that looked like this one. Pictures of people holding hands, smiling, together. In the corner of each drawing, a name was signed. Emma. "This was her room," Ezra said quietly. "I ain't changed nothing since she passed. Can't bring myself to. But I come in here sometimes. To remember. To remind myself why I keep going." Clara walked into the room slowly. Her fingers brushed against the drawings on the wall. "She was good," Clara whispered. "At drawing, I mean." She was good at everything. Quick mind, quick hands, quick smile. Ezra's voice was rough. "She came to us broken, Clara, same as you. Running from people who should have loved her and didn't. Convinced she was worthless. Convinced she didn't deserve nothing good." Clara turned to look at him. "Catherine changed that. My wife. She saw something in Emma that nobody else had bothered to look for. She loved that girl back to life." He paused. "And then the fever took them both. Catherine first, Emma a year later. Like she couldn't bear to live in a world without her mother. Clara's eyes burned. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be something else. Ezra walked over to the dresser and picked up a small wooden horse, the same one Clara had found yesterday. Emma used to say that sorry don't change nothing. But doing something, being something, that's what matters. He held out the horse to Clara. I want you to have this. Clara stared at it. I can't. It was hers. It was, and now I'm giving it to you, because I think she would have wanted that, would have wanted someone else to hold on to it, someone who needed it. Clara took the horse. It was smooth from years of handling, worn from love. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Ezra's expression shifted. I ain't just showing you this room to make you sad, Clara. I'm showing you because I want you to understand something. What? This house is too big for one man. Too quiet. Too empty. He looked around the room, at the drawings on the walls, at the bed where his daughter used to sleep. Catherine always said we should fill it up, take in children who needed a home, build something good out of all this space. Clara's breath caught. I couldn't do it. After she died, after Emma died, I couldn't bring myself to open that door again. It hurt too much. Felt like betraying their memory. He turned to face Clara. But then I found you, standing in that snow, half dead but still fighting, and I thought, his voice cracked. I thought maybe this was my sign. Maybe this was God's way of telling me it was time. Clara didn't know what to say. The wooden horse felt heavy in her hands. I ain't asking you to be Emma, Ezra said. I ain't asking you to replace her or fill the hole she left. What I'm asking is, he paused. Would you help me? Help me build something here? Something Catherine would have been proud of? Help you how? By staying, by healing, by being the first. His eyes met hers. And maybe, someday, by helping me save the others. Others? There's more children out there, Clara. More kids like you and Emma. Thrown away. Forgotten. Left to die in the cold. His jaw tightened. I can't save them all. I know that. But I can save some. And that's got to be worth something. Clara looked down at the wooden horse, at the drawings on the walls, at this room full of love and loss and hope. I don't know if I can do that, she said quietly. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You walked through a blizzard with no shoes and didn't give up. That's plenty strong. That was different. That was just surviving. And what do you think this is? Ezra's voice was gentle. What do you think any of it is? Surviving, Clara. Day after day. Getting up when everything tells you to stay down. That's all any of us are doing. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Ezra moved toward the door. Room's yours if you want it, or you can stay in the one you're in now. Your choice. He left. Clara stood alone in Emma's room, surrounded by drawings of a life that had ended too soon. She looked at the wooden horse in her hands. I don't know if I can be what he needs, she whispered to no one. I don't know if I can be anything. But even as she said it, something stirred in her chest, something small, something stubborn, something that felt like the beginning of a choice. The days passed slow at first, then faster. Clara spent most of her time exploring the ranch, learning its rhythms, watching the people who lived there. Bessie ran the house like a general commanding an army. Nothing escaped her notice. No dust on the shelves, no wrinkle in the lemons, no meal served late. She was hard on the outside, all sharp words and sharper looks. But Clara noticed the way she tucked extra biscuits onto plates when she thought no one was watching. The way she hummed hymns while she worked. The way she always seemed to know when someone needed a kind word, even if that word came wrapped in gruff instruction. "You gonna stand there all day, or you gonna help me with these dishes?" Clara startled. She'd been watching Bessie from the doorway, lost in thought. "Sorry, I'll help." "Don't need your sorry, need your hands." Clara grabbed a towel and started drying. They worked in silence for a while, the only sound the clink of dishes and the slosh of soapy water. "Bessie?" "Hmm?" "How long you been here? At the ranch?" Bessie's hands stilled for a moment. "Going on 20 years now." "That's a long time." "Is. Longer than I've been anywhere else in my whole life." Clara stacked a dried plate on the counter. "You got family? Before here, I mean." The silence stretched. Clara thought she'd pushed too far. "I did," Bessie said finally. "Husband, 3 children. Lost the husband in the war, lost the children to cholera the year after. All 3 within a week of each other." Clara's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Long time ago now. Pain don't go away, but it gets quieter." Bessie handed her another dish. "Ezra found me after that. I was working in a saloon in Helena, scrubbing floors, barely keeping body and soul together. He offered me a job, a home, a reason to keep living. So he saved you, too." Bessie looked at her, really looked. "He didn't save me, child. He gave me a chance. The saving," she tapped her own chest, "that I had to do myself. Same as you will." Clara didn't know what to say, so she just kept drying dishes. "You're doing better than you think," Bessie said quietly. "I've seen a lot of hurt children come through this world. Most of them, the hurt makes them hard, makes them mean, turns them into the same kind of people who hurt them in the first place." She turned to face Clara. "But you're not hard. You're scared. You're careful. You're watching and waiting and trying to figure out if this is real. That ain't weakness, Clara. That's wisdom, and it's going to serve you well." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I don't feel wise. I feel like I'm drowning." "That's how wise feels sometimes. The foolish ones never feel like they're drowning. They just sink to the bottom and don't even notice they're dead." A laugh escaped Clara before she could stop it, small and surprised. Bessie smiled. Actually smiled. It changed her whole face. "There it is," she said. "That's what we're looking for. Bit of light breaking through." She handed Clara the last dish. "You're gonna be all right, Clara Finch. It might take a while. Might take longer than you want. But you're gonna be all right." Clara wanted to believe her, wanted it so badly it hurt. "How do you know?" "Because I've been where you are, and I'm still here." 2 weeks passed. Clara's feet healed. The nightmares came less often. She started eating without feeling like every bite might be her last. And she started to learn. Silas taught her about the horses. He had a way with them, gentle and patient, talking to them like they could understand every word. "This here's Bella," he said, leading Clara into the barn one morning. "You remember her?" Clara nodded. The chestnut mare who had carried her through the blizzard. "She's the boss's favorite. Been with him longer than I have." Silas ran a hand down Bella's neck. "She's got good sense. Knows people. Can tell if someone's trustworthy just by looking at them." "What'd she say about me?" Silas grinned. "She let you ride her in a blizzard. That's about the highest compliment Bella gives." Clara reached out and touched the mare's nose. Bella snorted softly and pushed against her palm. "You want to learn to ride proper?" Silas asked. Clara's heart leaped. I can? Ain't nothing stopping you but yourself. Boss says you can do whatever you want around here, long as you don't hurt yourself or the animals. I've never ridden before. Not really. Mrs. Barlow, she had a horse, but she never let me near it. Then we'll start from the beginning. Saddle, reins, how to mount up without falling on your face. Silas's eyes twinkled. By spring, you'll be riding like you were born in the saddle. Clara spent the next week in the barn. She learned to brush Bella's coat, to check her hooves for stones, to measure out feed. She learned to read the mare's body language, the flick of an ear, the swish of a tail, the soft nicker that meant trust. And she learned to ride. Keep your heels down, Silas called as Clara circled the corral. Relax your shoulders. You're stiff as a fence post. I'm trying not to fall off. You won't fall off. Bella won't let you. Trust her. Trust. That word again. Clara took a breath, let her shoulders drop, stopped gripping the reins so tight, and something shifted. The fear didn't disappear. It never completely disappeared. But it faded, replaced by something else. The wind in her hair, the horse moving beneath her, the sky stretching endless overhead. There you go, Silas was grinning when she brought Bella to a stop. There you go, little miss. You're a natural. I'm not a natural. I'm just stubborn. Same thing far as horses are concerned. Clara patted Bella's neck. The mare snorted approvingly. Silas? Yeah? Thank you for teaching me. Ain't nothing to thank. Teaching's easy when the student wants to learn. He paused. Besides, Boss told me to keep an eye on you. Make sure you're settling in. And what are you going to tell him? Silas studied her for a moment. I'm going to tell him you're going to be just fine. Might take a while. Might be some bumps along the way. But you're going to be just fine. Clara wanted to believe him. Was starting to believe him. And that was the scariest thing of all. It was the third week when the stranger came. Clara was in the kitchen, helping Bessie with dinner, when she heard the hoofbeats. Fast. Urgent. Not the easy rhythm of someone coming home. Ezra was on the porch before Clara reached the window. Silas appeared from the barn, a rifle in his hands. Easy, Ezra called out. Let's see who it is first. The rider came into view. A man, middle-aged, his horse lathered and blowing. He reined up in front of the house and nearly fell out of the saddle. Mr. Thornton, thank God I found you. Easy there, Jacob. Ezra moved forward to steady the man. What's happened? It's the Henderson place. Fire. Whole thing went up last night. The man's voice was shaking. Tom Henderson's dead. His wife, too. And the children. Clara's blood went cold. What about the children? 2 of them. Boy and a girl. They got out somehow. I found them this morning, hiding in the barn that didn't burn. Jacob was crying now. They ain't got nobody, Mr. Thornton. Not a soul in the world. I didn't know where else to bring them. Ezra's face had gone hard. Stone hard. Where are they now? In my wagon, down the road. I didn't want to bring them up without asking first. Didn't know if you'd... Bring them. Ezra's voice was flat, final. Bring them. Now. Jacob nodded and rode off. Ezra stood there for a moment, staring after him. Then he turned and saw Clara watching from the window. Their eyes met. Bessie, Ezra called without looking away from Clara. Get 2 more beds ready. We got company coming. Clara's heart was pounding. 2 more children. 2 more lives, broken and lost, and needing somewhere to go. You ready for this? Ezra asked quietly. still looking at her. Clara thought about Emma's room, the drawings on the walls, the empty chairs at the big table. "No," she said honestly, "but I don't think that matters." Something flickered across Ezra's face. Approval, maybe, or understanding. "No," he said, "it don't." The wagon appeared 20 minutes later. Jacob drove, his face gray with exhaustion, and in the back, huddled together under a thin blanket, were 2 children. A boy, maybe 12, dark hair, dark eyes, jaw set hard like he was trying not to cry. And a girl, younger, maybe 8, clinging to the boy's arm like he was the only solid thing left in the world. Clara watched from the porch as Ezra walked to the wagon. He moved slowly, carefully, the same way he'd approached her in the blizzard. "Hey there," he said softly. "My name's Ezra. This is my ranch. You're safe here." The boy didn't answer, just stared at Ezra with eyes that had seen too much. The girl started to cry. "Shh, Ruby," the boy pulled her closer. "It's okay. I got you." Ruby. The girl's name was Ruby. "What's your name, son?" Ezra asked. "Jonas." The boy's voice was rough. "Jonas Whitmore. This is my sister, Ruby May." "You ain't Henderson's?" "No, sir. We was staying with them, working the farm." Jonas's jaw tightened. "They took us in after our ma died. Said they'd give us a home if we worked for it." Clara's chest ached. She knew that story. Knew it too well. "Well, Jonas," Ezra held out his hand, "you don't have to work for a home here. You just have to want one." Jonas stared at the offered hand. Didn't take it. "That's what the Hendersons said too." "I ain't the Hendersons." "How do I know that?" Clara moved before she knew what she was doing. Down the porch steps, across the yard, until she was standing next to Ezra. "You don't," she said. "You don't know nothing about this place, or these people. You got no reason to trust them." Jonas looked at her, suspicious, guarded. "Who are you?" "My name's Clara. I got here 3 weeks ago, found half dead in a blizzard." She held up her hands, showing the healing scars where the cold had split her skin. "I know what you're feeling right now. I know it seems impossible that this could be real, that anyone could actually want to help you." Jonas didn't respond, but something shifted in his eyes. A crack in the wall. "I'm not going to lie to you," Clara continued. "I still don't know if I trust these people. Still don't know if this place is real. But I know one thing for sure." "What's that?" Clara looked at Ruby May. The little girl had stopped crying, was watching Clara with huge, wet eyes. "Your sister's cold. She's scared. She's hungry. And whatever this place turns out to be, it's warmer than that wagon." Clara stepped back. "So maybe you come inside, get some food in her, and figure out the trust part later." Jonas stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked down at Ruby. "You hungry, Ruby May?" The little girl nodded. Jonas let out a breath. Something in him sagged, like a rope that had been pulled too tight for too long. "All right." He stood up in the wagon, lifting Ruby with him. "All right. We'll come inside." Ezra reached up to help them down. This time, Jonas took his hand. Clara watched them walk toward the house. Bessie was already at the door, already shepherding them inside, already making promises about hot food and warm beds. Ezra stopped beside Clara. "That was good," he said quietly. "What you said to him." "I just told him the truth." "That's why it was good." He looked at her, and something like pride flickered in his eyes. "You understand them, what they're feeling, what they need to hear." Clara shrugged. I understand being scared. That's all. That's a lot. Ezra put a hand on her shoulder. That's everything sometimes. They stood there in the cold, watching the sun sink toward the mountains. This is what you meant, Clara said slowly, when you said you wanted to build something here. This is it. This is the beginning of it. How many more? How many more children are out there? Too many. Ezra's voice was heavy. More than one ranch can hold. More than one man can save. But we try anyway. Yeah, he looked at her. We try anyway. Clara thought about Jonas and Ruby May, about the fire that had taken everything they had, about the long road that had brought them here, to this ranch, to this moment. She thought about herself, about the wagon and the snow and the frozen bread in her pocket. I want to help, she said. The words came out before she could stop them. I want to help you save them. Ezra was quiet for a moment. You sure? No, Clara shook her head. I ain't sure about nothing. But I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of just surviving. I want to do something that matters. She looked up at him. I want to be something that matters. Ezra didn't smile, but something in his face softened. You already are, Clara. You just don't know it yet. He turned and walked toward the house. Clara stood there in the fading light, watching him go. 3 weeks ago, she had been dying in a blizzard, convinced she was worthless. Now she was standing on her own feet, in her own boots, making her own choices. And somewhere inside her, in a place she had thought was dead forever, something was growing. Hope. Real hope. The kind that didn't need to be protected or hidden or kept small. Clara took a breath, let it out slow. Then she followed Ezra inside, ready to meet the next chapter of whatever this story was going to be. Jonas didn't trust anybody. That much was clear from the first night. He sat at the dinner table with his arm around Ruby May, watching every movement, tracking every hand that reached for the breadbasket or the salt shaker. His food sat untouched on his plate while his sister ate. Only when Ruby May was full did he pick up his own fork. Clara recognized that look. She'd worn it herself 3 weeks ago. You ain't got to protect her from the potatoes, Silas said, his voice gentle despite the joke. They ain't gonna bite. Jonas's jaw tightened. I ain't hungry. You're lying, Clara spoke before she could stop herself. You're starving. I can see it in your face. But you won't eat until you're sure she's safe. Jonas turned to look at her. His eyes were hard, suspicious. How would you know? Because I did the same thing. First night I was here, I couldn't eat either. Kept waiting for someone to snatch the plate away. Tell me I hadn't earned it. Ruby May looked up from her food. Did they? Take it away? No, Clara shook her head. They let me eat until I was sick. Then they gave me more. The little girl's eyes went wide. She looked at Bessie, then at Ezra, then back at Clara. That true, mister? She asked Ezra. You really let her eat all she wanted? Every last bite. Ezra's voice was soft. And I'll do the same for you and your brother. Tonight, tomorrow, every day after that. Long as you're under this roof, you don't go hungry. That's a promise. Ruby May tugged on Jonas's sleeve. Jonas, he promised. Promises don't mean nothing, Ruby. Jonas's voice was bitter. People say all kinds of things. Then watch what we do. Ezra met the boy's eyes. Ignore the words. Watch the actions. And when you've seen enough, you can decide for yourself if we're worth trusting. Jonas stared at him for a long moment. Something flickered in his expression. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something. He picked up his fork and started to eat. Clara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That night, she found Jonas standing outside Emma's room. The door was open. He was staring at the drawings on the walls. "Who was she?" he asked, without turning around. Clara moved to stand beside him. "Her name was Emma. She was Ezra's daughter. Not by blood, but his all the same." "What happened to her?" "Fever, 5 years ago." Jonas was quiet for a moment. "He keeps her room like this. All her stuff. Her drawings." "Yeah." "Why?" Clara thought about that. I think it helps him remember why he does this. Why he takes in kids like us." Jonas turned to look at her. In the lamplight, he looked older than 12. Worn down. Used up. "The Hendersons weren't bad people," he said quietly. "They worked us hard, but they fed us. Kept a roof over our heads. I thought maybe—" He trailed off. "Maybe they'd start to love you." "Yeah," his voice cracked. "Stupid, right?" "No." Clara's chest ached. "Not stupid. Human." "They died, Clara. Burned up in their own house. And all I could think, standing there, watching the flames—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "All I could think was that I was glad Ruby May wasn't inside. That's it. Not sad for the Hendersons. Not grateful for what they gave us. Just glad my sister was alive." "That ain't wrong." "Feels wrong." Clara reached out and put a hand on his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "You protected her. That's what matters. Everything else, the guilt, the feelings, all that mess inside your head, that's just noise. The truth is simple. You kept your sister alive. And now you're here. And you got a chance at something better." Jonas's eyes were wet. He blinked hard, fighting the tears. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. "Don't know how to stop fighting. Stop watching. Stop waiting for everything to fall apart." "I know." Clara squeezed his arm. "I don't know either. But maybe we can figure it out together." He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time since he'd arrived, something in his face softened. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Maybe we can." The days turned into weeks. Winter held the valley in its grip, snow piling up against the fences, ice forming on the creek. But inside the ranch house, something was changing. Jonas started helping in the barn. At first he was stiff, suspicious, watching Silas like he expected to be hit for making a mistake. But Silas was patient. Showed him how to care for the horses, how to mend tack, how to move around animals without spooking them. "You got good hands," Silas told him one afternoon. "Steady, calm. Horses like that." Jonas ducked his head. "My pa was a horseman. Before he left." "He teach you?" "Some. Before he decided we wasn't worth sticking around for." Silas was quiet for a moment. "Man who walks out on his children ain't a man at all. That's on him, not on you." Jonas didn't answer. But Clara, watching from the barn door, saw something shift in his shoulders. A tiny release of tension. A small unburdening. Ruby May bloomed like a flower in spring. She followed Bessie everywhere, chattering non-stop, asking questions about everything. Why did bread rise? How did the stove work? Could she help with the cooking? "Child never stops talking," Bessie grumbled one evening. But she was smiling when she said it. And Clara noticed that Ruby May's apron had been hemmed to fit her perfectly, the stitches neat and careful. "You love her already," Clara said. Bessie's hands stilled on the dough she was kneading. "Don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do." Clara leaned against the counter. "You fixed her apron. You braided her hair this morning. You saved the biggest biscuit for her at breakfast." "I did no such thing." "Bessie." The older woman sighed, let her shoulders drop. "She reminds me of my youngest," she said quietly. "My Sarah. Same eyes, same way of looking at the world like it's full of wonders." Clara's heart twisted. "I'm sorry. About your children." "Long time ago now," Bessie resumed, kneading, her movements fierce. "Can't change the past. Can only try to do better with the future." She looked up at Clara. "That's what this place is about, you know. Ezra, me, Silas, we all lost people. Lost pieces of ourselves. But instead of letting that loss make us bitter, we're trying to turn it into something good." "Does it work?" Bessie was quiet for a moment. "Ask me again in 20 years. It was a gray morning in February when the next child came. Clara was in the barn with Jonas, mucking out stalls, when she heard the shout. Silas's voice, urgent and sharp. "Boss, we got a situation!" They ran outside. Silas was at the gate, holding someone, in his arms. A small figure, limp and still. "Found him in the south pasture," Silas said as they approached. "Half buried in a snowdrift. Don't know how long he's been out there." Clara's stomach dropped. The child in Silas's arms was a boy, maybe 11 years old. His lips were blue. His skin was gray. His clothes were rags, barely enough to cover a body, let alone protect it from the cold. "Get him inside." Ezra's voice was tight. "Now." They carried the boy into the kitchen. Bessie had water heating before anyone could ask. Clara grabbed blankets, while Jonas stood frozen in the doorway, his face white. "He alive?" Jonas asked. "Barely." Ezra was stripping off the boy's wet clothes, his movements quick and efficient. "Silas, get the copper tub. We need to warm him up slow. Too fast and his heart might give out." Ruby May appeared at Jonas's elbow. "What's happening? Who is that?" "Don't know yet." Jonas pulled her back. "Stay out of the way, Ruby. Let them work." Clara knelt beside the boy. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and uneven. But he was breathing. That was something. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, can you hear me? You're safe now. You're gonna be okay." No response. "What's your name? Can you tell me your name?" The boy's eyelids fluttered. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "It's all right." Clara took his frozen hand in hers. "You don't have to talk. Just rest. We got you." They worked for hours, warming him slowly, spooning broth into his mouth, wrapping him in blankets, and praying he'd make it through the night. He did. By morning, the color had returned to his cheeks. His breathing was stronger. And when Clara came to check on him, his eyes were open. "Hey there," she said softly. He stared at her. His eyes were dark, almost black, filled with a fear so deep it made Clara's chest hurt. "You're at Thornton Creek Ranch," she said. "You're safe here. No one's gonna hurt you." The boy didn't respond, just kept staring at her like she was speaking a language he didn't understand. "Can you tell me your name?" Silence. "It's okay if you can't talk. Some people, when they've been through bad things, the words get stuck. I understand that." Something flickered in the boy's eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or surprise. "My name's Clara. I live here. Well, I guess I live here now. 3 months ago, I was just like you. Alone. Scared. Didn't know if I was going to make it through the night." She held up her hands, showing him the scars on her palms. Frostbite. From walking through a blizzard with no shoes. Hurt like hell when it was healing. But it healed. I healed.
And you will too.
The boy's eyes moved to her scars, then back to her face.
Samuel.
The word was so quiet, Clara almost missed it.
Samuel?
My name. His voice was rusty, like something that hadn't been used in a long time.
Samuel Prescott. Samuel, Clara smiled. That's a good name. Strong name. My pa's name. Samuel's face twisted. They hung him 3 months ago. Said he was a horse thief.
Clara's stomach clenched.
Was he?
Yeah. Samuel's voice was bitter.
He was. But he was still my pa. And after they hung him, nobody wanted nothing to do with me. Said I was bad blood. Said I'd end up just like him.
He looked away.
Maybe they're right. Maybe I am bad blood. Maybe that's all I'll ever be.
Clara thought about her own father, about the mine collapse, about all the things people said about orphans and strays and children who came from nothing.
Let me tell you something, Samuel Prescott.
She waited until he looked at her.
I don't care who your pa was. I don't care what he did. You ain't him. You're you. And you get to choose who that is.
Easy for you to say.
No, it ain't easy at all.
Clara leaned forward.
It's the hardest thing in the world. Deciding to be something different than what everyone expects. Fighting against all the voices that tell you you're worthless. But it's possible. I know it is. Because I'm doing it.
Samuel stared at her for a long moment. His eyes were still wary, still scared. But underneath the fear, Clara saw something else. Hope. Small and fragile and barely there, but there.
You really think I could be different? He whispered. Than my pa? I think you already are.
Clara stood up.
You're alive, Samuel. You survived. You made it here. That took strength. That took will.
And that tells me everything I need to know about who you are. She headed for the door. Clara? She turned back. Thank you, Samuel's voice cracked, for not looking at me like I'm something dirty. Clara's heart ached.
You ain't dirty, Samuel. You're just a kid who's been through hell. And now you're somewhere that maybe, just maybe, can help you find your way back.
She left him alone with his thoughts. But that night, when she passed his room, she heard something she hadn't expected. Crying. Real crying. The deep, shuddering sobs of someone who had finally found a safe place to break. Clara stood outside the door for a moment. Then she knocked softly.
Samuel? You okay?
The crying stopped. Silence.
Can I come in?
More silence. Then, so quiet she almost missed it.
Yeah.
Clara opened the door. Samuel was sitting up in bed, his face wet with tears, his arms wrapped around his knees. She crossed the room and sat down on the edge of the bed. Didn't say anything, just sat there.
I keep seeing it,
Samuel whispered.
The rope. The way he looked at me before.
His voice broke. Clara reached out and put her hand on his arm.
I know. How do you make it stop? The picture's in your head. You don't. Not really.
Clara thought about her own nightmares. The wagon disappearing into the snow. Agnes Barlow's cold eyes.
But they get quieter. Easier to live with. Takes time. How much time? Don't know. Different for everyone.
She squeezed his arm.
But you don't have to do it alone. That's the thing about this place. Nobody here is alone.
Samuel looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted.
You really believe that? I'm starting to. Clara smiled softly. Ask me again in a few months. Maybe I'll be sure by then.
A sound escaped Samuel. Not quite a laugh, but close.
You're strange, Clara Finch. I know. She stood up. Get some sleep, Samuel. Tomorrow's a new day, and around here, new days mean new chances. She headed for the door.
Clara? She turned back. I'm glad Silas found me, Samuel said quietly. I'm glad I didn't die in that snowdrift. Clara felt tears prick her own eyes. Me too, Samuel. Me too. Spring came slow, melting the snow inch by inch, revealing the green beneath. The ranch stirred back to life. Cattle needed moving, fences needed mending, and the big house that had once been so empty was now full of noise. 4 children, 4 stories, 4 lives broken and mended and still healing. Clara watched them sometimes when they didn't know she was looking. Jonas and Samuel in the barn, arguing about the best way to shoe a horse. Ruby May in the kitchen, standing on a stool beside Bessie, learning to knead bread. All of them together at the big table, filling the empty chairs, filling the empty spaces. You did this, Ezra said one evening, coming to stand beside her on the porch.
Did what?
Brought them together.
Made them feel like they belong.
Clara shook her head.
I didn't do nothing. You're the one who took them in.
I gave them a roof. You gave them something else. Ezra looked at her. You gave them hope, Clara. You showed them what was possible. Clara didn't know what to say. The words felt too big, too heavy.
I just told them the truth, she said finally, about what it's like to be scared, to be alone, to think you're worthless.
That's exactly it. Ezra's voice was soft. You understand them. You speak their language, and that's worth more than any roof or any meal. He put a hand on her shoulder. Catherine always said the same thing. Said the best way to help someone heal was to show them they weren't alone, that somebody else had been where they were and made it through.
Did she?
Clara's voice was small. Every day, with Emma, with me, with everyone who crossed her path. Ezra's eyes were distant, lost in memory. She had a gift for seeing the broken places in people, and instead of turning away from them, she moved toward them, made them feel seen, made them feel worthy. He looked at Clara. You got that same gift, Clara. I've watched you use it. With Jonas, with Ruby May, with Samuel. You see them, really see them. And that changes everything. Clara felt tears burning in her eyes. She blinked them back.
I don't feel gifted, she whispered. I just feel like I'm making it up as I go.
That's what all the best people feel like, Ezra smiled. The ones who think they've got it all figured out, they're the dangerous ones. The humble ones, the scared ones, the ones who keep trying even when they're not sure. Those are the ones who change the world. He squeezed her shoulder. You're changing this world, Clara, one child at a time, and I'm proud to watch you do it. Clara couldn't speak. The tears were falling now, hot and fast, and she couldn't stop them. But for the first time in her life, they weren't tears of grief or fear or loneliness. They were tears of something else entirely. Something that felt like belonging. Something that felt like home. The rider came at dusk, pushing his horse hard to the spring mud. Clara saw him first from the barn door, a dark shape moving fast against the fading light. Silas, she called. Someone's coming. By the time the rider reached the yard, Ezra was already on the porch, his face set in hard lines. Clara recognized that look. It meant trouble. Mr. Thornton! The rider pulled up, breathing hard. Got a message from town. Sheriff Dalton says you need to come in. Says there's been some talk. What kind of talk? About the children. The writer's eyes flicked to Clara, then away. Folks are asking questions. Where they came from. Whether you got the right to keep them. Clara's blood went cold. Ezra's expression didn't change. I got every right. They're under my protection. Ain't me you gotta convince. The rider shifted in his saddle. Sheriff just said you should come. Sooner rather than later. Tell him I'll be there tomorrow. The rider nodded and rode off. Ezra stood on the porch, watching him go. What does that mean? Clara's voice came out smaller than she wanted. What kind of questions? Ezra turned to look at her. It means somebody's been stirring up trouble, and I got a pretty good idea who. Who? Virgil Crawford. Ezra's jaw tightened. His family's been fighting mine for 30 years over that south pasture. He can't beat me in court, can't beat me in business, so he's trying a different angle. The children. The children. Ezra came down the porch steps. He's probably telling folks I'm collecting orphans to work as free labor, or that I'm running some kind of illegal operation, something to get the law involved. Clara felt sick. But that ain't true. You ain't like that. I know. You know. But people in town don't. All they see is a rich man with a big ranch suddenly filling his house with homeless children. He paused. Looks suspicious if you want it to. So what do? We go to town. We answer their questions. We show them who these children really are. Ezra looked at her. You up for that? Clara thought about Jonas and Ruby May, about Samuel, about the home they were building together. Yeah, she said. I'm up for that. The town of Copper Hollow sat at the base of the mountains, a small cluster of buildings that served the ranchers and miners scattered across the valley. Clara had never been there, had only heard stories from Silas and Bessie about the general store and the church and the saloon where cowboys spent their wages. She rode beside Ezra on Bella, her back straight, her chin up. Behind them came Jonas on a borrowed horse, his face set in the same hard lines as Ezra's. They'd left Samuel and Ruby May at the ranch with Bessie and Silas, not wanting to expose them to whatever waited in town. Remember, Ezra said as they approached, don't let them see you scared. People smell fear like dogs smell blood. You show weakness, they'll tear you apart. I ain't scared, Clara lied. Good. Keep it that way. The sheriff's office was a small building at the end of the main street. A man stood outside, middle-aged, with a star pinned to his chest and a tired look in his eyes. Beside him stood another man, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. That's Crawford, Ezra muttered. Stay calm. They dismounted. Ezra walked toward the sheriff, with Clara and Jonas flanking him. Sheriff Dalton. Ezra's voice was cordial, but there was steel underneath. Got your message. Ezra, the sheriff nodded. Appreciate you coming in. Didn't have much choice, way I hear it. Ezra's eyes flicked to Crawford. Virgil, didn't expect to see you here. Just a concerned citizen. Crawford's voice was smooth, oily. Been hearing some disturbing things about your operation out there. Ain't no operation, just a ranch. A ranch full of orphans, Crawford smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Curious thing, that. Man your age, no wife, no children of his own, suddenly taking in strays from all over the territory. What I do on my land is my business. Is it? Crawford stepped forward. These children got families? Got people looking for them? Or did you just collect them, like stray dogs? Clara felt Jonas tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm, warning him to stay quiet. Every child in my house was abandoned, Ezra said flatly. Left to die. I gave them a home, that's all. That's your version, Crawford turned to the sheriff. I've heard different. Heard you might be working these kids.
using them for cheap labor. Maybe worse.
That's a lie. The words burst out of Clara before she could stop them. Crawford turned to look at her. His eyes raked over her face, dismissive, contemptuous. "And who are you?" "Clara Finch." She stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I was the first. Mr. Thornton found me half dead in a blizzard 3 months ago. He didn't have to stop, didn't have to help. But he did." "Touching story." Crawford's voice dripped with fake sympathy. "But I've heard touching stories before. Usually they're covering up something ugly." "You want to see ugly?" Clara's voice rose. "I'll show you ugly. I'll show you the scars on my feet from walking through snow with no shoes. I'll show you the marks on my hands from frostbite. That's what your concerned citizen crap is protecting. People who throw away children like garbage." "Clara," Ezra's voice was warning. "No," she shook her head. "I ain't gonna stand here and let him twist this into something dirty. I know what Mr. Thornton's done for me. For all of us. And I ain't gonna let some bitter old man with a grudge tear that apart." The street had gone quiet. People were watching from doorways and windows, drawn by the raised voices. Clara felt their eyes on her, judging, weighing. Let them look, she thought. Let them see. Sheriff Dalton cleared his throat. "Young lady's got spirit." "Spirit don't make her honest," Crawford shot back. "Maybe not. But I've known Ezra Thornton for 20 years. The sheriff's voice was thoughtful. "Never known him to be anything but decent. Can't say the same about everyone in this valley." Crawford's face darkened. "You taking his side?" "I ain't taking nobody's side. I'm doing my job." Dalton looked at Ezra. "You got documentation? Something that proves these children ain't got family claiming them?" "I got records of every child that's come to my ranch. Where they came from. How they got there. The circumstances that brought them to me." Ezra's voice was calm. "You're welcome to look at them any time." "I'd like that," Dalton nodded. "Tomorrow, maybe. Bring them by my office. We'll go through everything, make sure it's all proper." "And until then," Crawford demanded, "you just let him keep collecting children like cattle?" "Until then, I suggest you go home and mind your own business." Dalton's voice hardened. "Less you got actual evidence of wrongdoing, you're just wasting my time." Crawford's jaw clenched. For a moment, Clara thought he might explode. Then something shifted in his expression. A cold calculation replacing the hot anger. "This ain't over, Thornton," he said quietly. "Not by a long shot." "Never thought it was." Ezra tipped his hat. "See you around, Virgil." They rode back to the ranch in silence. Clara's hands were shaking, the adrenaline of the confrontation still pumping through her veins. "You shouldn't have done that," Ezra said finally. "Done what?" "Spoken up like that. Crawford's dangerous. You just put yourself on his radar. He was lying about you. I couldn't just stand there and let him." "Yes, you could have." Ezra turned to look at her. "Sometimes the smart thing to do is keep your head down. Let the storm pass." "Is that what you do?" "It's what I've had to do. For 30 years." He paused. "But I'll admit, watching you stand up to him, it was something." Jonas spoke for the first time since they'd left town. She was right, though, what she said. Crawford was lying. Course he was lying. That's what men like Crawford do. Ezra's voice was tired. They twist the truth until it serves their purposes. And they don't care who gets hurt in the process. "What's he really after?" Clara asked. "The South pasture you mentioned?" "That's part of it. His father lost that land to me in a card game 30 years ago. Virgil's never forgiven me for it." Ezra shook his head. "But it's more than that. He wants to break me, wants to see everything I've built come crumbling down. The children, that's just his latest weapon." "So what do we do?" "We do what we've always done. We keep our heads up. We take care of our own. And we don't let men like Crawford dictate how we live our lives." They reached the ranch as the sun was setting. Bessie was waiting on the porch, her face tight with worry.
Well?
Crawford's stirring up trouble, Ezra said, dismounting. But the sheriff's fair. We'll handle it.
And the children?
Safe. For now. Ezra headed inside. I need to pull together those records. Sheriff wants to see them tomorrow. Clara stayed outside, watching the colors fade from the sky. Jonas came to stand beside her.
You were brave today, he said quietly. Standing up to that man. Didn't feel brave. Felt scared.
That's what brave is. Jonas looked at her.
Doing the thing that scares you anyway.
Clara thought about that, about all the things that had scared her over the years. The orphanage, Agnes Barlow, the blizzard. And now this, a new kind of threat, one she couldn't fight with determination alone.
Jonas? Yeah? You think we're safe here? Really safe?
He was quiet for a moment. I think we're safer than we've ever been anywhere else. And I think that man in there would die before he'd let anyone hurt us.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Clara's voice was small.
That he'll get hurt trying to protect us.
Then we protect him back. Jonas's jaw set. That's what family does. Family. The word still felt strange in Clara's mouth, but it was starting to feel true. The next few weeks were tense. Ezra went to town, showed the sheriff his records, answered every question. The sheriff seemed satisfied, but Crawford didn't give up. He kept talking, kept spreading rumors, kept trying to turn the town against the ranch. Clara watched Ezra grow quieter, more withdrawn. The stress was wearing on him. She could see it in the lines around his eyes, the stiffness in his movements. "You need to rest," she told him one evening. "I'll rest when this is over."
"It might never be over. Crawford ain't gonna stop."
"Then neither will I." Ezra's voice was hard. "I didn't build this place to let one bitter man tear it down." But Clara saw the truth he wouldn't admit. He was tired, old, fighting a battle that never seemed to end. It was Bessie who finally said what everyone was thinking.
"You need help,"
she told Ezra one night after dinner.
"Can't fight Crawford alone. Need allies. People in town who'll speak up for you."
"Who's going to speak up for me? I keep to myself. Always have."
"Maybe that was a mistake."
Bessie's voice was gentle but firm.
"Maybe it's time to change."
Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Clara. "You made friends in town? That day at the sheriff's office?"
"I made enemies," Clara shrugged. "But maybe some friends, too. Some folks looked at me like they believed what I was saying."
"Maybe that's where we start." Ezra leaned back in his chair. "Maybe we stop hiding out here. Start showing people what this ranch really is."
"How?"
"I don't know yet." He rubbed his face with his hands. "But we'll figure it out. We always do." The idea came from Ruby May, of all people.
"Why don't we invite them here?" she asked one morning at breakfast. "The town people. Let them see for themselves."
Everyone stared at her.
"What?"
Ruby May looked around the table.
"That's what Mama used to do. When folks gossiped about her, she'd invite them for supper. Said it's hard to hate someone after you've eaten their cooking."
Bessie let out a surprised laugh.
"Child's got a point."
"She does." Ezra was looking at Ruby May with new respect. "An open house. Let people come, see the ranch, meet the children. Show them there's nothing to hide." "That's risky," Jonas said.
"What if Crawford uses it against us?"
"Crawford's going to use everything against us anyway." Clara felt something spark in her chest.
"At least this way, we control the story."
Ezra nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it. We'll plan something for next month. Give us time to prepare." "Prepare for what?" Samuel asked, speaking up for the first time. To show them who we really are. Ezra looked around the table, at each of the children who had found their way to his door. To show them that this family is real and worth protecting. The preparations took weeks. Bessie cooked like a woman possessed, filling the kitchen with breads and pies and roasts. Silas made sure the ranch looked its best, the fences mended, the barn swept clean, the horses groomed until they shone. And the children practiced. Remember, Clara told them the night before, you don't gotta prove nothing to these people. Just be yourselves. That's enough. What if they ask about our pasts? Samuel's voice was tight. About my pa? Then you tell them the truth, or you don't tell them anything. Your choice. Clara put a hand on his shoulder. Nobody can make you share more than you want to share. And if they're mean? Ruby May asked, her eyes wide. Like that Crawford man? Then we ignore them, Jonas spoke up, his voice fierce. We don't let mean people take away what we got here. The day of the open house dawned clear and warm. By mid-morning, wagons were rolling up the road to the ranch, carrying families from town and neighboring spreads. Clara stood on the porch, her heart hammering, watching them come. Beside her, Ezra was calm, steady, the way he always was in a crisis. Ready? He asked. No, Clara took a deep breath, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's my girl. The first guests to arrive were a young couple with a baby. They looked nervous, uncertain, like they weren't sure they belonged here. Clara stepped forward. Welcome. I'm Clara. Can I show you around? The woman smiled, relieved. That would be lovely. I'm Sarah. This is my husband, Thomas. Clara led them through the house, showing them the kitchen where Bessie was laying out food, the parlor where Ruby May was playing piano, badly but enthusiastically, the barn where Jonas was explaining horses to a group of fascinated children. This place is wonderful, Sarah said as they walked. I'd heard such terrible things, but this is a home. That's what it is. Clara felt a lump in her throat. A home for people who didn't have one. More guests arrived throughout the day. Most were curious. A few were suspicious. But Clara met each one with the same honesty she'd shown that day in town. She told her story, over and over, watching faces shift from doubt to understanding. You really walked through a blizzard? One woman asked, her eyes wide. With no shoes, Clara held up her hands. Still got the scars. And that man took you in, just like that? Just like that. Clara looked across the yard to where Ezra was talking with the sheriff. He didn't ask for nothing, didn't expect nothing, just gave me a place to be. The woman was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and squeezed Clara's hand. God bless him, she said softly. And God bless you, child, for surviving. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, ma'am. Crawford came late in the afternoon. Clara saw him ride up, his face set in hard lines, and her stomach clenched. But Ezra didn't turn him away. Instead, he walked out to meet him, his hand extended. Virgil, glad you could make it. Crawford stared at the hand like it was a snake. You think this changes anything? I think it gives you a chance to see the truth for yourself. Ezra's voice was calm. Come inside, meet the children, see what we've built here. For a moment, Clara thought Crawford would refuse, but something shifted in his expression. Curiosity, maybe, or calculation, and he dismounted. Fine, he said. Show me. Ezra led him through the house, just as Clara had led the others. Crawford said nothing, his face unreadable. But Clara saw his eyes taking everything in. The happy children, the warm kitchen, the sense of family that filled every room. When they reached the parlor, Ruby May was still at the piano, picking out a simple tune with intense concentration. "Who's this?" Crawford asked. "Ruby May Collins." Ezra's voice was soft. "She came to us 2 months ago, her and her brother. Their foster family died in a fire." Crawford watched the little girl for a long moment. Something flickered in his expression, something that almost looked like pain. "She's got her mother's hands," he muttered. "You knew her mother?" "I knew the Hendersons." Crawford's voice was rough. "Knew they took in strays. Didn't know it ended like that." He turned away, walking toward the door. "This don't change nothing between us," he said over his shoulder. "But I'll leave the children out of it. That ain't a fight I'm interested in." He left. Clara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "What just happened?" Jonas asked, coming to stand beside her. "I don't know." Clara watched Crawford ride away. "But I think something shifted." "He's still our enemy." "Yeah," Clara nodded slowly. "But maybe not as much as he was this morning." The open house ended at sunset. As the last guests drove away, the family gathered on the porch, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," Ruby May said, bouncing on her toes. "We showed them." "We did," Ezra smiled, the first real smile Clara had seen on his face in weeks. "You all did. I'm proud of every one of you." Clara looked at her family, this strange, beautiful collection of broken people who had somehow become whole together. Jonas with his protective scowl, Ruby May with her endless energy, Samuel with his quiet strength, and Ezra, the man who had stopped in a blizzard, who had opened his door to children nobody else wanted, who had given them all a reason to believe. "Thank you," Clara said quietly. Ezra turned to look at her. "For what?" "For everything." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "For stopping. For seeing me. For building this." "I didn't build this alone." Ezra's voice was rough with emotion. "We built it together. All of us." He put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "That's what family means," he said softly. "Building something together. Something stronger than any of us could be alone." Clara leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace, the solidity of his presence. Family, she thought. For the first time in her life, the word didn't feel like a lie. It felt like the truth. 3 more children came that summer. First was Lily Grace, 7 years old, found wandering the main road with no memory of who she was or where she'd come from. The doctor in town said it was shock, that sometimes the mind protected itself by forgetting. Clara held her hand through the first terrible nights, when she woke screaming from dreams she couldn't name. Then came Tobias Jenkins, 9 years old, half Cherokee on his mother's side. His white father had abandoned them, and after his mother died, neither community would claim him. He showed up at the ranch gate one morning, a small bundle over his shoulder, asking if he could work for food. "You don't work for food here," Ezra told him. "You just get to eat." Toby stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. And finally, on a hot August afternoon, a wagon rolled up carrying a boy Clara recognized the moment she saw him. Her heart stopped. "That's impossible," she whispered. But it wasn't impossible. It was real. The boy in the wagon had her father's eyes, her father's chin, the same stubborn set to his jaw that she saw every time she looked in the mirror. "William," she breathed. The boy looked up, 6 years old, thin as a rail, terrified. "Clara?" His voice cracked. "Is that really you?" She was off the porch before she knew she was moving, across the yard, her arms around him, holding him so tight she could feel his heart beating against her chest. "Will! Oh God, Will! I thought you were dead. They told me you were dead."
They told me the same thing about you. He was crying, his small body shaking. The nuns said you got adopted, said I'd never see you again. I'm here. Clara pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. I'm right here. I ain't going nowhere. Promise? Promise. The man who'd brought Will climbed down from the wagon, middle-aged, with kind eyes and a preacher's collar. You Clara Finch? He asked. I am. Boy's been asking about you for 3 years, ever since he ended up at the mission school in Missouri. I finally tracked you down through the orphanage records in Helena. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't think. Her brother, her baby brother, who she'd been separated from when their father died, who she'd spent years believing was gone forever. How? She finally managed. God works in mysterious ways, Miss Finch, the preacher smiled. Sometimes he brings families back together when they least expect it. Ezra appeared beside her. He looked at Will, then at Clara, and understanding dawned in his eyes. This the brother you told me about? Clara nodded. She couldn't find words. Well then, Ezra crouched down to Will's level. Welcome home, William. We've been waiting for you. That night, Clara sat on the edge of Will's bed while he fell asleep. She couldn't stop looking at him. Couldn't believe he was real. You're staring, Will mumbled, his eyes half closed. I know. I can't help it. Why? Because I missed you. Clara's voice broke. Every single day. I missed you so much it hurt. Will reached out and took her hand. I missed you too. I used to dream about you. Dream that you'd come find me and take me away. I'm sorry I didn't. I'm sorry I let them separate us. You were just a kid, same as me. Will's eyes opened, serious beyond his years. It wasn't your fault, Clara. None of it was your fault. Clara felt tears streaming down her face. When did you get so wise? The sisters at the mission school. Will smiled sleepily. They taught me lots of things, like how to forgive. Forgive who? Everyone. Mama for dying, Papa for dying. The people who separated us. He squeezed her hand. Even myself, for not being strong enough to find you sooner. Clara bent down and kissed his forehead. You're the strongest person I know, Will Stone. Stone? That's our new name. Clara and William Stone. Ezra's going to adopt us both, make us real family. We were always real family. Will's eyes drifted closed. Blood don't make family. Love does. Clara sat there long after he fell asleep, holding his hand, watching him breathe. 7 children now. 4 boys, 3 girls. A family built not from blood, but from choice. And for the first time in her life, Clara felt complete. The years pass the way years do, slowly when you're living them, fast when you look back. Clara watched the children grow, watched the ranch prosper, watched Ezra's hair go from gray to white. She was 17 when he first got sick. Just a cough, he insisted, waving away Bessie's concern. Nothing to worry about. But Clara saw the truth he tried to hide. The way he moved slower. The way he tired easier. The way he sometimes stopped in the middle of a sentence, like he'd forgotten what he was saying. You need to see the doctor, she told him. I've seen doctors. They don't know nothing. Please, for me? He looked at her, this girl he'd pulled from the snow 5 years ago, this woman she was becoming, and something in his expression softened. All right, for you. The doctor came the next day, examined Ezra, talked to him in private, then came to find Clara in the kitchen. His heart, the doctor said quietly. It's wearing out. Could be years yet. Could be months. No way to know for certain.
Clara felt the floor tilt beneath her feet.
There must be something you can do.
I can give him medicine for the pain, tell him to rest. But the truth is, Miss Stone, some things can't be fixed. The doctor put a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. That night, Clara found Ezra on the porch, staring out at the mountains. You heard, he said, not a question. Yeah. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you myself. Don't apologize. Clara sat down beside him. Just tell me what you need. Ezra was quiet for a long moment. I need to know this place will be okay when I'm gone. That the children will be taken care of. That everything I built won't just disappear. It won't. How can you be sure? Clara looked at him. This man who had saved her life. Who had given her everything. Because I'll make sure of it, she said. I'll take care of the ranch. Take care of the children. Keep this family together, no matter what. That's a big promise. I've made bigger. Clara smiled through her tears. Remember? I promised I'd survive. I promised I'd be something. Well, this is what I'm going to be. The person who keeps your legacy alive. Ezra's eyes were wet. He reached out and took her hand. You're already more than I ever dreamed, he said quietly. When I found you in that snow, half dead and all alone, I thought maybe I could give you a chance. Maybe help you survive. I never imagined. Never imagined what? That you'd end up saving me. Clara squeezed his hand. We saved each other. That's what family does. The months that followed were hard. Ezra grew weaker. The children took turns sitting with him, reading to him, telling him stories about their days. Ruby May played piano for him every evening. Will drew pictures and tacked them to the wall beside his bed. Jonas and Samuel took over more and more of the ranch work, proving they'd learned their lessons well. And Clara held everything together. She managed the business, negotiated with buyers, handled the paperwork, made the hard decisions that Ezra couldn't make anymore. At 17, she was running one of the largest ranches in the territory, and she did it with a competence that surprised everyone except Ezra. I knew you could do this, he told her one evening. Knew it the moment I saw you standing up to Crawford in town. You got fire in you, Clara. Always have. I learned from the best. No, Ezra shook his head. You were always this way. I just gave you room to grow. Crawford came to visit once, late in the fall. Clara met him at the gate, her back straight, her eyes hard. What do you want? To talk. Crawford held up his hands. That's all, just to talk. Clara studied him. Something had changed in the man since the open house. The sharp edges seemed worn down. The anger in his eyes had faded to something more like regret. 5 minutes, she said. They walked toward the house. Crawford looked around at the ranch, at the children playing in the yard, at the life that filled every corner. I heard Ezra's sick, he said finally. News travels fast. I came to say... He stopped, swallowed hard. I came to say I'm sorry, for the trouble I caused, for trying to tear this place apart. Clara stared at him. Why? Because I was wrong. The word seemed to cost him something. I spent 30 years hating your father for winning that card game. 30 years trying to take back what I thought was mine. But watching him build this, watching what he's done for these children, Crawford shook his head. That land ain't worth a fraction of what he's built here. Then why did you fight so hard for it? Because I didn't know what else to do. Crawford's voice was rough. My father taught me to hate, taught me that the world owed us something. Took me a long time to realize he was wrong. Clara was quiet for a moment. What changed? My daughter was born. A ghost of a smile crossed Crawford's face. And I looked at her, this tiny, perfect thing, and I thought about what kind of man I wanted to be, what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. And I realized I didn't want her to grow up the way I did, full of anger, full of hate. He turned to look at Clara. Your father, Ezra, he built something good here, something pure. I spent years trying to destroy it, and all I did was prove how small I really was. Clara didn't know what to say. The man standing before her was not the enemy she'd been fighting for 2 years. He was just a person, broken, flawed, trying to find his way. I appreciate you saying that, she said finally, but I can't speak for Ezra. If you want his forgiveness, you'll have to ask him yourself. I know, Crawford nodded. That's why I'm here. Clara led him inside. Ezra was in the parlor, propped up in his favorite chair, a blanket across his legs. He looked up when Crawford entered, and something complicated passed across his face. Virgil. Ezra. Crawford stood awkwardly, his hat in his hands. I wanted to... Spit it out. I'm sorry. The words came out in a rush. For everything. The threats, the rumors, the years of trying to take what wasn't mine. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I'm sorry. Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Clara held her breath. Sit down, Virgil, Ezra said finally. Crawford sat. The two men looked at each other, decades of conflict hanging between them. You know what Catherine used to say? Ezra asked. She used to say that grudges were like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Said the only person they hurt was the one holding them. Smart woman. She was. Ezra's voice was soft. I miss her every day. I'm sorry about that too. About her. About Emma. About all the loss you've carried. That's the thing about loss. Ezra looked around the room, at the children gathered in the doorway, at Clara standing guard beside his chair. It can break you, or it can teach you. Took me a while, but I finally learned. Learned that the only way to beat loss is to build something new, something worth losing. He looked at Crawford. You got a daughter now, a chance to start fresh. Don't waste it fighting old battles. I won't. Crawford's voice was thick. I promise. Good. Ezra held out his hand. Then I forgive you, Virgil. For all of it. Crawford took his hand, held it. Two old enemies finding peace at last. Thank you, Crawford whispered. Don't thank me. Just do better. Be better. For your daughter. For yourself. Crawford left an hour later. Clara watched him ride away, something heavy lifting from her chest. You really forgive him? She asked Ezra. Life's too short for grudges, Clara. I learned that the hard way. He reached for her hand. Promise me you'll remember that. Promise me you won't let anger eat you up the way it ate Virgil for all those years. I promise. Good, Ezra smiled. Now help me up. I want to see the sunset one more time. Clara helped him to the porch. They sat together, watching the sky turn gold and pink and purple. It's beautiful, Ezra said softly. It is. You're going to take care of them, Clara. All of them. I know you will. I will. And you're going to remember what this place is about. Not the land, not the cattle, the family. I'll remember. And you're going to know every single day that you were worth saving. Ezra turned to look at her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. That's the most important thing. You were always worth saving, Clara Stone. From the very first moment I saw you. Clara couldn't speak. The tears were falling too fast. I love you, she managed. Papa, I love you. I love you too, daughter. Ezra squeezed her hand. more than I could ever say. He died 3 days later, peaceful, surrounded by family. They buried him beneath the old oak tree next to Catherine and Emma. Clara stood at the grave with her brothers and sisters around her, and she spoke the words she'd been preparing for months.
Ezra Thornton was the best man I ever knew. He found me when I was lost. He took me in when I was broken. He gave me everything: home, family, purpose, love, and asked for nothing in return except that I become the person he believed I could be. She looked at the children gathered around her, Jonas and Ruby May, Samuel and Lily Grace, Toby and Will. Her family, her responsibility now. He taught me that family isn't about blood.
It's about choice. It's about showing up for each other, day after day, no matter what. It's about building something together that's stronger than any of us could be alone. She took a deep breath. This ranch will go on. This family will go on. And Ezra Thornton's memory will live in every acre, every fence post, every child who finds their way to our door. Because that's what he built. Not just land, not just cattle, but something that would last, something that would matter. She looked at the grave. Rest now, Papa. You've earned it. The years rolled on. Clara grew into the woman Ezra always knew she could be. She ran the ranch with a steady hand and a fierce heart. She took in more children, 5 more, then 10, until the big house was overflowing with noise and laughter and life. She trained them the way Ezra had trained her, teaching them not just skills, but values. Compassion, resilience, the belief that every person was worth saving. Jonas became the foreman, married a girl from town, had 3 children of his own. Ruby May grew up to be a teacher, running a small school on the ranch for children who had nowhere else to learn. Samuel became a horse trainer, the best in the territory, his father's ghost finally laid to rest. Lily Grace remembered her past eventually, made peace with it, and dedicated her life to helping others heal. Toby used his knowledge of the land to become a guide, leading settlers safely through the mountains. And Will, her baby brother, grew into a strong, kind man who stood beside Clara through everything. Clara never married. She didn't need to. She had a family, dozens of them by the end, children and grandchildren of the heart, if not of blood. And she kept Ezra's legacy alive, just like she promised. Every morning she walked to the old oak tree and stood beside his grave. "Still here," she would say, "still going, still taking in the ones nobody else wants." And sometimes, when the wind blew just right, she could almost hear his voice. "That's my girl." On her 60th birthday, Clara stood on the porch of the ranch house and looked out at everything they had built. The barns and the fences, the gardens and the orchards, the dozens of children playing in the yard, their laughter echoing across the valley. Her children, her grandchildren, her legacy. Ruby May came to stand beside her, gray-haired now, but still bright-eyed. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Clara smiled. "Nothing. The way it all started. The way it all turned out." "Any regrets?" "Not a one." Clara looked at her sister. "You?" "Just one." Ruby May's voice was soft. "That Ezra couldn't see this. Couldn't see what we became." "He sees it." Clara touched her heart. "Right here. He sees everything." A commotion at the gate drew their attention. A wagon was pulling up, driven by a tired-looking woman with 2 children huddled in the back. "Here we go again," Ruby May said. Clara laughed. "Here we go again." She walked down the porch steps, across the yard, toward the gate, toward the next chapter, the next child, the next chance to do what Ezra had done for her all those years ago. The woman climbed down from the wagon, her face drawn with exhaustion and fear. "Please,"
she said. "I heard there was a place here, a place for children who got nowhere else to go."
Clara smiled. The same smile she'd been giving for 45 years. The smile that said, "You're safe now. You're home."
"You heard right," she said. "Welcome to Thornton Creek Ranch."
And she opened her arms wide. The story that had started with abandonment ended with belonging. The girl who had been left behind became the one who stayed. The child who was called worthless became the woman who showed hundreds of others their worth. Clara Stone Thornton lived for 30 more years. She saw 5 generations of children come through the ranch. She saw the valley change, the world change, everything change, except the one thing that mattered most: the belief that every person was worth saving, the knowledge that family was what you made it, the truth that love, real love, never died. It just grew and spread and multiplied until it touched every life it encountered, changing them all, making them better, making them whole. That was Ezra's legacy. That was Clara's legacy. That was the legacy of every broken child who had ever walked through the gates of Thornton Creek Ranch and found something they never expected to find. Home. Real home. The kind that lasted forever.